Xabi Alonso, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Dean Howson. Perez finally remembered the pin to his bank account, and he's spending big. Every club has its up and downs. For most teams, it's a part of the game, but not for Real Madrid. When Madrid falls, they don't stay down. They reload, they rebuild, and they come back swinging harder than ever. To the outside, it may look chaotic, but the club is always adapting. It's why after winning the double and having two of their players be on the Ballon d'Or podium, Perez still signed Mbappe. So when they are doing that after a successful season, you can only imagine how aggressive they will move after a shaky season like in 2025. They have already brought in big names, new faces. This is what Real Madrid does. When they lose, they don't sulk, they spend. Their failures never last long because they don't rebuild quietly, they reload like a machine gun. This process has been the entire philosophy of Perez ever since he became president. This policy of signing the biggest and best players was actually what helped him win the election the first time. You see, Real Madrid had won 2 European Cups in 1998 and 2000 under the presidency of Lorenzo Sanz. But Perez wanted to win more, make bigger signings. He won the presidential election on a wild promise. Signed Barcelona's Luis Figo, the best player in Spain. Nobody thought he could do it considering Figo was Barcelona's best player and the face of the Catalan Giants. Barca players don't play for Madrid and vice versa, especially when the player is a superstar. But Perez delivered on his promise. He paid Figo's massive 62 million euros release clause, a world record back then, and brought the Portuguese winger to Madrid, right from the hands of their biggest rivals. Figo arrived at the Bernabeu and wasted no time proving his worth. Yes, some pigs were thrown at him. He was booed, but he ended up winning the Ballon d'Or that same year and delivered 17 assists as Real Madrid stormed to the La Liga title in 2001. And just like that, the Galacticos era had begun. From there on, Perez had a very simple plan. Every summer bring in another superstar. Not just good players, global icons. And year after year he delivered. It's like he was going into a bar and every single time pulling a baddie. In 2001, he smashed the transfer record again, this time signing Zinedine Zidane from Juventus for around 76 million euros. Zidane was already a World Cup and Euro winner, but at Madrid, he gave the fans a moment that they'll never forget. That left-footed volley in the 2002 Champions League final. It gave Madrid their 9th European Cup. It was more than just a goal, he had made history. By then, the squad looked like a fantasy team. It's like me playing career mode, cause just when you thought it couldn't get any more ridiculous, in 2002, Ronaldo Nazario, the Brazilian phenom, Fat Ronaldo, arrived from Inter Milan. At this point, he still wasn't that fat yet, but his knees were worn out, but his magic wasn't. He scored twice on his debut and finished as the league's top goal scorer as he helped Madrid lift the La Liga title in the 2002-2003 season. And still, Perez wasn't done. In the summer of 2003, fresh off that title win, he brought in David Beckham. Beckham at the time was an English icon, and he landed in Madrid for 35 million euros. There was like 500 journalists there for his unveiling. It was a media circus, and it was a reminder that for Perez, football was just as much about the spotlight as it was about the scoreboard. His strategy hasn't changed much since the first edition of the Galacticos. Just look at the last 15 years. Only twice have Madrid finished a season without a single trophy. The first year that happened was in 2009. Perez returned back to being the president for a second stint, and he was needed because the previous season had been a disaster. Madrid ended the year trophyless, humiliated 6-2 by Barcelona at home in El Clasico, and crushed by Liverpool in the Champions League. It wasn't just a bad season, it was a wake-up call, and Florentino Perez had heard it loud and clear. Because remember, at this period, Real Madrid were not giants in the Champions League. They were actually famously known for constantly crashing out in the round of 16. So Perez returned as president, and he wasted no time. In the summer of 2009, he unleashed one of the most outrageous spending sprees football has ever seen. Nearly 250 million euros in one window to bring the Galacticos back for a second time. First, it was Kaká from AC Milan, a player who just a few years ago had been a Ballon d'Or winner. A week later, Cristiano Ronaldo arrived for a world record 80 million pounds. Ronaldo wasn't just any big signing, he was the reigning Ballon d'Or winner. He was a superstar, a global icon, and he was brought in to restore Madrid's dominance. But Perez wasn't done. He also signed a 21-year-old Karim Benzema from Lyon, then he brought in Xabi Alonso from Liverpool, and then a defensive reinforcement in Raul Albiol. Unfortunately for Albiol, he didn't get the spotlight that the other guys got. Altogether, over 261 million euros were spent. The excitement exploded. That summer, all the stars were unveiled to 80,000 screaming fans of the Santiago Bernabeu. Pellegrini summed it up perfectly at that time. "We've built a star-studded team," he said. And on opening day, Perez's ultimate team took the pitch. New faces, new energy, and a whole lot of hope. The football was incredibly exciting. Madrid scored 102 goals in La Liga that year, but they weren't quite ready yet. Despite a club record 96 points, they finished second to the best Barcelona side ever. They also crashed out in the Champions League in the round of 16 again. Ronaldo, even though he missed 2 months through injury, still scored 33 goals in all competitions. Now Madrid, they didn't panic. Perez had laid the groundwork. In 2010, he brought in Jose Mourinho to instill a tougher winning mentality. The special one had shown that he can defeat Barcelona. Mourinho's mentality changed the club, and soon the trophies followed. They lifted the Copa del Rey in 2011, and then came the big one, the 2011-2002 La Liga title. A record-breaking 100 points, 121 goals. The counterattacks of this team were insane. People always like to label Mourinho as a defensive coach, but that 2012 Madrid team was one of the best counterattacking sides I've ever seen. And most importantly, they beat Guardiola's Barcelona to do it. Messi scored 91 goals in a calendar year, and it wasn't enough. That version of Madrid was too dominant. Ronaldo and Benzema had slowly grown into icons. Alonso ran the midfield like a maestro, and together they proved the 2009 rebuild wasn't just hype, it was the birth of a new dynasty. By 2014, the second Galacticos team had become one of the most feared sides in world football, and the message was clear: when Madrid fall, they don't just rise, they rise with stars. Mourinho at this point was gone because Madrid had a bit of a down year in 2013, but he was replaced by another big name manager, Carlo Ancelotti. As we have seen, Madrid don't just buy superstar players, but they also go for the best and biggest names when it comes to manager. On top of a new coach, Madrid kept spending. After months of speculation, they finally landed Gareth Bale from Tottenham. What was the fee? A jaw-dropping 100 million euros. Another world record transfer. Another statement from Perez. Bale joined Cristiano Ronaldo and Benzema to form a new look front three. They called it BBC. Get your mind out of the gutter, guys, it was just their names. And it didn't take long for that trio to deliver. Bale announced his arrival with a stunning solo goal to win the Copa del Rey final, and it was that much sweeter because it was against Barcelona. I just know Bartra still has nightmares of this goal. It's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. That version of Gareth Bale was a phenom, but that title win was just the beginning. On May 24, 2014, Real Madrid faced Atletico in the Champions League final. It was a crazy match. Madrid were seconds away from losing, but then Sergio Ramos came through, and in extra time, they dominated. Real Madrid had finally won the Champions League again, La Decima, their 10th European Cup, a title that they had been chasing for over a decade. And what helped them? Certainly the attack did. Bale, Benzema, and Ronaldo combined for 97 goals across the season. Big money had built a big team, and once again, Madrid's spending turned into silverware, because that's the way Real Madrid do things. When they spend big, it's rarely a gamble. At one point or another, they win. What makes Perez different is that he doesn't just buy big when Madrid are down. He buys big when they're on top too, because most clubs celebrate success by taking a breath. Perez sees it as the perfect time to strike again. The guy's a psycho. After Madrid won La Decima in 2014, he didn't sit back to enjoy his moment. He went shopping again. He pulled off another blockbuster. He signed James Rodriguez, who was fresh off winning the Golden Boot at the 2014 World Cup. It was a move straight out of the Perez playbook. Grab the breakout star of the world's biggest tournament to strengthen his team and boost his brand. James wasn't alone. That same summer, Real also brought in Toni Kroos from Bayern Munich, a World Cup winner and one of the smartest midfielders in the game. Look at Kroos' face, man. He's just so German. He joined Luka Modric, who had arrived 2 years earlier, and Madrid's midfield was now stacked. The message to the world of football was loud and clear. Even as champions of Europe, Real Madrid would never settle. Under Perez, success wasn't just some finish line. It was an infinite game. By the late 2000s, Los Blancos were sitting on a mountain of silverware. Under Zidane, they did the unthinkable. 3 Champions League titles in a row from 2016 to 2018. It was a golden era, built on a core that had already been assembled. Ronaldo, Bale, Benzema, Modric, Ramos. Players brought in through Perez's earlier masterstrokes. And yet again, even in this moment of dominance, Perez didn't stand still. While the world admired Madrid dominating European football, Perez was already planning for the future. He actually shifted gears. He moved away from signing global icons to securing the next ones before they exploded. In 2017, he signed a 16-year-old Vini Jr., and a year later, he brought in Rodrigo. Both were raw talents from Brazil, full of potential, and Perez got them early, before any bidding war, before the spotlight. You just know Perez has scouts everywhere in the favelas. It was a different kind of Galactico strategy, less about buying finished products, more about building them. But again, the message was unmistakable. Whether Madrid were on top or rebuilding, Perez always moved with intent. When they failed, he spent big to bounce back. When they conquered, he kept refining the team. After the amount of success they had though, came their second trophyless season, 2019. Now this was a chaotic season as Ronaldo had left for Madrid in the summer. Losing a guy who scored 400 plus goals, it's gonna hurt your team. They were dethroned in La Liga, humiliated by Ajax in the Champions League, and went through 3 different managers in one season. For a club built on glory, this was unacceptable. But history had seen this before, and just like in 2009, Perez responded with the only way he knows how, by raw dogging the transfer market. In the summer of 2019, Real Madrid went on another wild spending spree. They shelled out a ton of money to rebuild the squad. The headline signing? Eden Hazard. Perez had been chasing the Chelsea star for a year, and now with Ronaldo gone, Hazard was brought in to fill that void on the left wing. The price tag was huge, around £150 million, one of the most expensive deals in the club's history. But it was only the beginning. Perez also signed Jovic after his breakout season at Frankfurt, Eder Militao from Porto, Mendy from Lyon, and then they finalized the earlier deal they had made for Rodrigo. By mid-June, the club had already spent over £300 million. The message was clear. They weren't gonna sit there and start weeping about not winning a trophy. They were gonna spend their way out of this rut. Now, although the returns weren't instant, Jovic was a massive flop, and so was Hazard, the impact of many of these signings happened in the future. So initially, Zidane had returned as coach in March of 2019, and with some new tools in hand, he guided Real Madrid to the 2020 La Liga title. The team as a whole had transformed. They became a more defensively solid team, conceding the fewest goals in the league. Mendy took Marcelo's place, and what he lacked in flair going forward, he made up for by being a defensive rock. Militao and Courtois led the back line, and even as Hazard and Jovic struggled, the team found new ways to win. The 2020 title restored some pride, but Perez wasn't thinking about just one season. He was trying to build the next great team. By 2022, his plan really came to life. Madrid were back on top of Europe, winning their 14th Champions League title. It was thanks to the 2019 signings who stepped up. Militao became the backbone of the defense. Mendy was the starting left back through the run. And Rodrigo, who was still only 21, scored some unforgettable goals. How can anybody forget his last-minute brace against Manchester City in the semi-final? Hazard and Jovic, on the other hand, went down as two of the club's worst signings. Hazard suffered with injuries. Once the Premier League's brightest star, he barely featured. His contract was terminated in 2023. Jovic had flamed out even faster. He scored just 3 goals in 51 games before leaving for free in 2022. And yet, despite these expensive flops, Real Madrid didn't miss a beat. And that's kind of Perez's formula. He takes big swings, knowing that not all of them will land, but trusting that the ones that do land will keep the club winning. Because as Hazard and Jovic faded, Benzema rose to a Ballon d'Or level. Vinny turned into a world-class winger. Modric just doesn't age, and Courtois became the best goalie in the world. And the truth is that no single failure can disrupt Madrid altogether. Under Perez, there's always another plan, another star on the way. When one Galactico falls short, he will find the next one. And before you know it, Real Madrid always end up back on top. The 2025 season has followed the same pattern that we've seen before. Madrid were back in familiar territory. It was a bad season. Under Ancelotti, they were knocked out of the Champions League by Arsenal. They lost the Copa del Rey final to Barcelona, and then they let a 2-goal lead slip in the title-clinching match against Barca. So no La Liga, no Copa del Rey, no Champions League. It wasn't a great season. Technically, they didn't go trophyless if you want to count the UEFA Super Cup, but it was a disappointing season. When you add Mbappe to a team that had won multiple titles, you expect to win more, not less. But like I said, Perez had kind of seen this situation before. After the collapse of 2009, he responded with a record-breaking transfer window that rebuilt the club. After the failure of 2019, he did it again, and Madrid won the league the very next year. So after the disappointments of 2025, the same cycle began. Trent was the first new Galactico. Signed on a free transfer from Liverpool, the England international is one of, if not the best attacking fullback in the world. He's a superstar at right back, and he fills a key gap in the squad, and it's another step towards a younger, more dynamic Madrid. And as usual, Perez didn't stop there. At center back, they got Dean Housen, a towering, elegant defender who easily has the potential to become the next great anchor of Madrid's back line. It also helps that he's Spanish and that he idolized Sergio Ramos. It's the typical Perez strategy: blend proven stars with rising talents, sign players who can contribute now, but can also define the next decade. And the thing is, fans do demand instant results, but history reminds us that even the greatest Madrid teams needed time to gel. The second Galacticos team that had so many icons didn't win the league in their first season, but they laid the foundation for a side that would break records just a few years later. This rebuild is not just about fixing problems, it's about launching Madrid into their next era of dominance. What's interesting though is that their new era is going to be led by a man who was playing during Madrid's previous rebuild. Xabi Alonso was a Galactico as a player, and now he's going to lead the new Galacticos from the sideline. To see why everyone is so hyped about the Spaniard being Madrid's new manager, you gotta check out this video right here.